Hey, greetings, everyone. We are gathered today with some of the CSD brothers. No sisters today, just brothers. So we've got Josh in Minnesota where the sun is shining. Hello, Josh.
Hello.
How are you?
Hello. Doing well.
And we've got Jake right here. He's probably 100 feet away from my office here in Indiana,
Yeah.
maybe. And
Or
Toby's in Dallas. Hi, Toby.
The Big D, Texas representing.
Yeah, see your feed and Josh's feed looks much more enjoyable than me and Jake in our offices.
well, it's raining here right now.
Yeah,
Oh, it's a beautiful day here. It looks like it's a beautiful day there too, Josh.
yeah,
Yeah, it's mid-60s, sunshine, not a cloud in the sky.
cool. Well, we gathered today to do this live Q&A, and the reason is, just as you guys know, we've had a lot of churches contacting us, just trying to navigate through these new set of circumstances that we're all in, and I thought it'd be good to just kind of offer some brain power out there into the universe. So here we are. We had, and it's amazing how much interesting conversation there is about technology all of a sudden. We're all used to talking about it because that's our business, but all of a sudden, it's become really important, and especially churches are very aware of, what they look like online and how they present themselves online. And so much so that last week, Jake and I were part of a webinar where almost just a few people shy of 3,000 churches registered to listen to this topic of streaming, which is just crazy, that there's that many people wanting to talk about that. So that's some of the reason why we're here today. I wanted to start out with Toby, and as we were getting ready for this, we were kind of kicking around some ideas of things to talk about, and you had a great observation of thinking of cameras, like the cameras that are inside our sanctuary, of thinking those as missionaries, and those cameras are able to go out and reach people that maybe we couldn't before, which I thought was just a great example. So tell us about that. What's different now, or what are we appreciating maybe more now than ever before?
Sure. Well, the feedback is kind of that, COVID happened, and in this kind of world that we're in, everybody woke up and realized, hey, there's a technology team that's behind what we're doing on a weekly basis, and we have a way to now connect with and make a greater impact within our community, within our church family, and outreach to that. So the thought is some of the questions have been, what do we do when we go back and church kind of returns to normal, or whatever normal that it is? How do we adjust to maybe if we were a church that didn't have cameras before, and now we've integrated cameras to reach an online experience currently, but we want to keep that. And really, the thought process behind that is how do we connect with a lens? How do we connect with something that we can't necessarily see, and show that that's a part of the vision of the church? And the thought is that, for years we've thought about when we see places that we can't go, we can send a missionary into those places. We can support them, and we can allow them to go in and be able to reach into areas, whether it's in Africa or it's in South America or wherever it may be. And the thought just occurred, and this isn't my thought, I've actually heard this, but it's like, this is the exact time where we need to think of the cameras that are in our sanctuaries now as missionaries. They are an ability for us to go into places that we couldn't have gone before. Obviously, we were put in a place where we were kind of forced to do this somewhat because of reacting to what was going on. But this actually opens up a whole nother dimension or dynamic within our weekend experiences, within our church experiences, within our congregational experiences, that gives us the ability to reach in areas, homes, someone's mobile device, a computer, whatever that is, streaming platform, whatever that is. And so really kind of adopting that mentality can help with giving, what the overall thought process is of having that. We're not there to be a distraction, but we're there to really to capture that environment and say, We want to encapsulate that experience through the lens of this camera and allow that experience to be had by others that maybe can't be in the building right now, or that wouldn't be in the building when we come back.
Yeah, talk about you. There's kind of these two different worlds now. There used to be, for every church, we have the world that's inside the room, right? We've got these four walls inside of our sanctuary or our worship center, or whatever you call it, or your gym or your school or wherever you're in, right? You've got these four physical walls, and you've got music and sermons, and you're talking to the people that are in that room. But there's also a world outside of that, outside of those four walls, and not every church has always been equipped to reach that world. Some have not. Some have done it at a really high level. Some have done it at a low level. And I heard somebody say that for some churches, it used to be like we would capture what's going on in the room, so it looked pretty good in the room, and it sounded pretty good in the room. And oh, by the way, we kind of sent out this stream, like we sent out a camera image, and it went to the TVs in our hallways. And eventually it went down to a stream, and people could see it on their iPad, and they kind of got whatever it was, that's what they got. Now it's a little bit more important, right? And some places are actually, a lot of places now are actually looking at that world outside the building and really raising the importance of how that experience is captured. So Josh, that's what you do every day. You make these systems come to life, and you're working with the churches that are doing this and training them. And can you talk about those two different worlds and maybe what it's like for someone that has never put a really high emphasis on that external world, the people that are watching outside of the sanctuary?
Yeah, it's like a lot of the I've seen is, in the past, is the people in the room. You're preaching to the room. You're leading worship to the room. Your action is in the room. The people in the room. The energy is in the room, and the cameras are capturing what is happening inside the room and taking that, so to speak, experience and trying to relay that out beyond your walls. What I've had conversations with now in the past is people are trying to figure out how to connect to people outside their walls, connect to people in their homes, connect to people watching devices, as what Toby said. And what it's come down to is understanding how to talk into the lens of the camera and be able to keep your eyes there, because that is your connection point. You're not looking at 500 people, you're looking into a lens. So understanding and directing your pastor, understanding and directing your worship leader or your musicians, which camera to look into, how to switch to what camera. You are actually having to think more in a production world, producing things in a way to where the people at home are actually getting a full on contact of what's happening from the gospel being preached out. And that takes cameras, that takes coordination, that takes audio, microphones, and people, a team going through, and a bit of a script of being able to walk that through as a team, so that when it actually leaves your facility, the people aren't necessarily experiencing the room. They're experiencing the worship, they're experiencing the message and what you're actually talking to them about. It's not so much about capturing the essence of your building anymore. It's capturing what you're actually saying and communicating it through the lens of your camera. The lens of your camera is a gateway. It's literally nothing more than a gateway from you to get out, to get to the homes of your cell phones and computers and TVs. That's the way you're going out. That's what you got to sing to. That's what you got to preach to. And the quality of that, from lighting, from cameras to audio, differs obviously throughout facilities and budgets. But I've seen people and helped install systems that are high end, and I've helped set up systems that are super low budget, and they're doing it well, and it's thought through well. And so really sitting down and talking to your team, and it's a change of thought process of not just creating worship and picking your songs anymore. It's actually, okay, we're going to pick this song, but we need to think through how are we going to portray this on a camera so that it makes sense to the people at home.
You jump in, Toby?
Yeah, I was just going to say, you brought up a really good point that I think is cool and sometimes overlooked is, we focus a lot with people being in the room and understanding the audience experience that takes place there. And this has really forced us, again, I use that word loosely, but it has caused us to realize that there is a whole audience, if you will. We'll call it congregation, audience, whatever that is there, that you define it as they need to experience that as well. And again, we can think about it when we're in the room, because we're experiencing the room. We're surrounded by, whether it be lighting or whether it be an immersive video experience, whether it be a great audio experience or that type of thing. And we want to create that visually so that experience is portrayed in the same way. Again, just to create a distraction-free environment to where worship can go forth, to where God's word can go forth. And ultimately, the goal for all of this is for people to come to Christ. And so I 100% agree with you, but I think we need to look at, from the technology side of it, is looking at it as, do we really understand our audience, and thinking of what communicates the best. And as tech directors, as tech leaders, as technical production, looking through it and saying, what are we doing to help support what pastor is doing in his sermon? What are we doing to help support what the worship team, we are meant to be spirit-led people as part of the body of Christ. And so what is God saying, and how can we help with bringing that message to life for them? So.
Yeah, that's good. One of the things I tell people often is that just because you can go online doesn't mean that you should. Right?
Very true.
We're living in a time, probably now more than ever, where there's more bad recordings of church services than ever before, because everyone's getting on board, right? So what's some advice you can give to churches? Toby, I might go back to you, because I think of the obvious thing is the camera, right? Everyone knows we need a camera, we need to capture this, but you can put some cameras in some really bad positions, right? We've probably all seen the camera up in the balcony that's 19 feet in the air looking down on pastor. What are maybe some do's and don'ts of camera placement?
Yeah, it's a great point. I think, whether you have a $150,000 super high-end camera, or whether you've got a $500 camera that was picked up at Best Buy, or whatever that is, you can do a lot with just making sure that you have good framing, that your headroom is not like this and you're looking up at it, because then it becomes a distraction. Or it's not like this and you're going, where did his eyes go? So honestly, just bringing framing in is one thing. Background, you're exactly right. If you think of, if my camera is too high, I'm looking down at him. So what am I seeing back behind there? Are there cables back behind there? Or are there water bottles? Are there other things that, we may not necessarily pay attention to, but the camera sees? One rule to remember is the camera sees everything, and it doesn't lie with that. So take a look at that. Try to put your lens as close to, as much as possible, as eye level from not only your pastor when he is speaking, but with your worship team and that type of thing. When you're getting your head on shot, if you're doing an artistic shot or something like that, that's a little bit different. You can change that framing, but really take some time ahead of time, set it up, look at it on a monitor, do a test within your team, whether it's your volunteer team or whatever, to say, hey, how does this look? How does this come across? And really kind of do your homework on it, if you will. Much like we would if we were in a weekend experience that was happening live in a building. We would have, whether it's a rehearsal night, or we would have some sort of sound check or something along those lines prior to make sure that we were prepared. I think even more so now, Doug, to your point, is we have to make sure that we are prepared, because we have way more eyeballs on us now, and way more people looking and seeking for hope, and seeking for what is something that is good, what is something that is going to give me life, and so we have to have something that is also appealing visually to them.
Let's talk about the eyeballs. My church is probably like a lot of churches in that we had. I go to a pretty good sized church, and we had camera systems, and we did streaming, and we're used to having cameras in the room. But as a leader, I'm used to connecting with the eyeballs in the room, not the camera lens. And there's a lot of churches in that same category, whether it's a worship leader or a pastor. How do you help people start to make that transition to, again, like right now, all of us that are in churches, we're going, and whether we're live or we're recording, we are leading to an empty room, right? There's no eyeballs in the room. And if we, like Toby, you demonstrated the bad camera angles. If I look at you like this, there's a connection. If I look at you like this, there's not. And
Right.
that doesn't come natural to a lot of people. So how do you help people, get better at making that connection with the lens?
Well, I think the connection point is, again, understanding what's on the other side of that lens. Understanding that there's something that's going on the other side of that. The other thing is practice. I know that sounds really practical, but all of us have smartphone devices that we can get out and make a recording of yourself and say, okay, if I'm looking here, how am I connecting with the camera here? But if I'm looking here, I've got much more attention drawn, and I'm focusing on where that is that I need to be. It seems really simple. It seems really like, kind of, elementary, but it really does work. The other thing, I've seen some really creative ideas that have been floating around. I saw one post that was posted where people actually took pictures of the congregation and put it out into the on the chairs and it just helped them feel like they had people that were there. The one thing that I would say is to address the audience, the congregation, openly. We know that that we're all in this together. So openly expressing, I can't see you right now, but know that we're here. Just those type of open acknowledgments, open expressions, and really beginning to put yourself in that mindset of I am looking in the eyes of every congregant, of everyone who is actually seeking or coming by to see what our church is doing. I am looking in their eyes, and I have to visualize, if you will, them looking back at me.
Yeah. So it's like anything else, you got to practice, right?
You do.
Yeah. So Jake, when we talked to, like I said, a whole bunch of, literally thousands of churches last week. And one of the pieces of advice that our panel gave to them was to not be intimidated, don't be scared to start this process, or if you're in the middle of it, don't be scared to get better. And Jake, you come from a small church. You get to work with all kinds of sizes of churches here at CSD, but your home church, I think you've got an interesting story because you were not necessarily geared for streaming when all this happened. And you had tell us kind of you had a fast and furious story there.
Yeah, so we went from 0 to 100 in about 3 days. In a time when getting anything was next to impossible. And we had a member of our church who worked with a local theater. She was able to procure a camera, come over, and we just started recording. And the first 2 weeks was very haphazard, like we figured it out. As a whole team, I do this every day, but as a team and as a ministry, we weren't doing this every day. So there's a large learning curve there in figuring it out. We quickly started to suss out. We're still to this day. We just recorded last night for this weekend. And we were going through, figuring out new things for the process, what works, what didn't, and taking that one piece at a time to make it work. So yeah, we came from literally not a camera in the room, not a switcher in the room, not an encoder in the room, a marginal internet connection in the building. So we've actually now we're recording with a single camera. We actually, a funny side story is on Easter Sunday, we went live and it worked. We got out there, we got the message out there, everything worked. But we did it live from the building. We ended up in the pinch. We actually used some 3 iPhones on NDI into an app, had it all plugged in together, and overlaid some lower thirds and lyric stuff from ProPresenter and did our thing. Now we're doing the single camera shoot for now, until we expand some stuff out here shortly. And the original starting point was 0. And now there's a comfort level there, but one of the biggest things, and we talked about this last week with our webinar, the biggest challenge, the biggest question I've still received from 90% of people is more on not on the tech side. It's more on how do I engage people, like we've been talking about. How do I engage? How do I interact with people? And the biggest advice I've found, and I've gotten years ago from another friend, is speak to the one. Look in the camera. Don't make your message about, I'm not preaching to this entire room or preaching to you four. I'm talking straight to Toby right now. I'm talking straight to Josh right now. I'm talking straight to Doug right now. That makes the biggest difference, and just little things. I shared this with a friend just a couple of days ago. He called me asking me for some advice. Get on, if you're on social media, you're streaming through social media, if you're using YouTube, Facebook Live, Instagram, any of those platforms, there are a dozen ways, and Zoom even, you can pull people to the side instantly. It's a huge, huge avenue we have now, where if you're on Facebook Live and somebody says, hey, will you pray for me? Instead of waiting or just not saying anything, engage that person, have a team, have somebody from your ministry, right then pull them into a Facebook Messenger and say, hey, can we do it right now, and pray with them right there. If it's on Instagram, hit that button, hit record, and say, I would love to pray with you, Josh, and start praying right then. So those are things and steps that we're hopefully working towards, but it's a growing curve for everybody. It's definitely an interesting time to be doing it.
Yeah, there's some great tools now. Josh, you were talking about the concept of a prayer room, like within Zoom, because now you can have these, like you can have a regular meeting and then you can have, breakout meetings. Talk about that, like the kind of a virtual prayer room concept.
Yeah, Zoom has a nice little feature called a waiting room. So when you have like a meeting room number, people can click on the link that you can post on your stream. And then what happens is they pull up in a little waiting list, and then the person who's running the Zoom can click on each one at a time, bring them in, talk with them, pray with them, take whatever, figure out what their needs are, kind of get to know them a little bit, and then when you're ready to move on, they can leave the meeting, and then you click on the next one. It's a way to keep it private. It's a way to keep it not going public. It's a great way to stay connected. It's a great way to still pray for the people within your congregation and be able to connect. I know that there's churches doing that with even starting up life groups, small groups, whatever you end up calling it, to where their group leaders are doing conferencing and Zoom meetings to be able to stay within the orders of the governors of their states, so that they're able to stay connected and still encourage the families and the people around and be able to pray for everyone. So the Zoom is a feature. There's other ones that are doing it, but I don't know of any of them that have the actual waiting room feature that Zoom has to be able to allow people to come and go so easily and keep the meetings private at that point.
Yeah. And Josh, you're out in the trenches, right? Even though now it sounds like, Are you the one with birds in the background? It sounds very pleasant. Yeah. So somebody has birds tweeting.
How is he farther north than us?
All I know is it's not my office, but somebody, or maybe it is my
not
office,
here either.
I don't know. Somebody's got birds tweeting, but
you're a lot of birds here.
So you're out. I mean, you're literally out in the trenches with churches almost every weekend, and you with our company, you get to work on big churches that are broadcast facilities and churches that are just starting out and everything in between. And sometimes it's all new equipment. Sometimes you're going in and just helping people with what they have, and literally everything in between. So what are some things that you see people forget, right? Sometimes we remember the big items, like the big shiny objects that are fun to buy, and we might forget some really important things that are in the chain there.
I think as far as technological stuff, I mean, you can always forget a converter. You can always forget something that scales or a way to route audio. Probably the one thing that I find that I am encouraging churches to think through is it's nice to have the gear and to be able to functionality, but you still need a person to run it. It's like you still need to build your team. You still need to invest into your tech team, invest into your music team to be able to run the gear and be able to do the things that this gear is designed to do. All too often, I end up in a room and we've got all this great design and everything that the church has asked for. And then I'm like, okay, so who's the people I'm going to train? And all of a sudden I get blank faces. Like, I don't know. So when you're thinking through some of this stuff, realize that it does take fingers. It takes a person to push the buttons. It takes someone to think through when I should do it, so that's not a distraction on the stream or in the room or whatever it's doing. There's a process to it. That's a pretty consistent thing that sometimes gets forgotten among church planning as far as projects goes.
Yeah, that's good. How about communications? Like
Oh,
the
yeah.
little, little things like, how does the team talk to each other?
Right. So like it's, you have cameras, you got your setup, you got your pastor, you got your worship leader going, and you got to say 2, 3, 4 cameras, 5 cameras, whatever you end up having in your room. How do you tell the camera person that, hey, I'm going live, stop moving the camera? Some places use walkie-talkies. I've seen some places use comm systems like a ClearComm or a Telex. Whatever it ends up being, it needs to be clear. It needs to be clear communication. The walkie-talkie sometimes can be very hard to understand, especially with the headsets. The microphones don't work so good. The range doesn't work so good. Having clear communication that's not distracting to what's going on to the people that are in front of the camera is rather important, so that someone can actually call the shots. You have an audio guy, you have a video guy, you have a graphics person, you have a camera operator, 1, 2, or 3, or 4 of them. So you can have up to like 5 or 6, 7 people. And you got to kind of move as one. So as you're moving from a prayer time or to a message time or message to a song, knowing that the camera operator knows that you're going to them so that they know to be set and ready to go so that their camera's steady is kind of important. Knowing when to pull up a graphic, when to put in a downstream key on your video switcher to bring in a graphic at the right time and to remove it at the right time, or to unmute microphones on your mixer, depending on who's going to be speaking next. All that takes interworking the communication inside of a team to be able to push the button at the right time and kind of work coherently to make it all come together as one piece of the puzzle.
Yeah, good stuff. I want to say hi from our friend Dave Canada. Says, good stuff, man. So some encouragement for you guys there. I had a great question I was going to ask you. What was it? Oh yeah. So this might seem like the wrong question to ask, but I'm asking anyway. We hear from tech guys all over the place that they're more busy than they've ever been, right? And they don't have any free time. But let's assume you did have some free time, because we have buildings that have no people in them now. What kind of creative tech things or maybe maintenance things or upgrade things are good for tech teams to look at during this time when your rooms are empty? Maybe some do-it-yourself projects or just anything under that category of if you had free time, which I realize maybe nobody does. But if they did, what are some good things they could do during this time?
Oh, there's always, the first thing I would tackle, like when I was running sound and working inside the church as a tech director, I'd tackle the booth and start cleaning it up. I'd look at the cables behind the soundboard. I would look at how things are patched, because it's very common, happened to me all the time. I'd set the board, set the audio inputs, and they say, hey, we need to add 3 more instruments, or hey, we need to add this and this and this. And then I would do it, but I would forget about it. And then I'd have a mess. I'd have stuff on layer 3, layer 4, basically reorganize my inputs on my board. I would look at labeling out my cables, making sure it's clean, cleaning out the booth, servicing light fixtures, cleaning them out, kind of cleaning your rack out, servicing your amplifiers. If there's any bad cables to fix, solder them up. Let's get a cable tester. Let's see if we can fix them. You can get back to your thing and reorganize your cable room. Take time to take inventory. It's an opportune time to take things down and address some issues maybe that you've had, or try to say, hey, this has been a problem. This made noise. How can I make that noise come back and figure out where it's coming from without interrupting the service or having a deadline and saying, I've only got, say, 12 hours to the next thing. It's like, now I've got like days to work through some problems.
Yeah, that's good. Here's a good piece of advice from our friend Greg Culbertson, tech guy. He says, we're learning something every week. We realize it's really hard to multitask video production. Thank you, Greg, for that. Let's do one closing concept here, closing topic. Toby, I'll let you kick this one off. When this whole mess started, whenever it was, I don't even remember when it started, but I think we all kind of said, hey, how are we going to get through this weekend? Like Jake's story. You went, wow, we got to do something, got to do it now. And we kind of got through that first weekend, and then we all said, oh man, we got to do that again. And then there was Easter, and we're all like, well, surely we won't miss Easter. Well, then we couldn't gather for Easter. And so we've settled into this new reality, and I know and I believe that there's no going back. There's no one of the things you said, Toby, was don't retreat. And so I think all these things that we're learning how to do, they're not going to replace us gathering. We all can't wait to gather, and we need to gather, and that's going to be awesome when we get to come back. But I think all these things are going to be just more valuable additions, right, that we need to keep doing. So can you speak to that, just of maybe people that are out there learning and adapting, and just kind of give them some encouragement and advice to just keep going, once we are able to gather again?
Yeah, absolutely. And I will say this, probably more so now than any time in my lifetime that I can ever remember, we're at a level playing field. We're at a united front, really in the world as a whole. You look at, everything from, the Today Show to Good Morning America to Jimmy Fallon, all your night shows. Everybody is in the same world. We're all the technology is levelized with everybody's incorporating Zoom. Everybody's using Skype. Everybody is, they're staying home and they're rethinking through. I believe that the church has the message that is the hope of the world. That's Jesus. And we need to seize the opportunity. I love the fact that the church as a whole has really been the leading portion of how do we unite around this and continue to reach outside the four walls of where we are, and continue to reach a world that right now is hurting, in so many ways, that lost people are looking for a solution, and they need a savior, and we have that message. So we have the opportunity to not back down with it, and I almost see it as an encouragement, Doug, to be honest with you, that what we are here to do is a stronger mission statement from a technology standpoint now, even than what was before. And that's why I like what you said about we're busier now than what we were before. I think we are going to be. I think, and I don't say that as a discouragement, I say that as an encouragement, as this is not business as usual. This is not church as usual. And what is usual? What are our terms that we're thinking of that? We are, Mark 16:15 is, go into all the world, preach the gospel, right? Mm-hmm. So we are doing that through technology every single day. It's the digital Great Commission. And we have the opportunity to do that in an even greater and more expansive way than ever before. So I would say my encouragement to you is, let's do this thing. We're in this together. Let's take charge. Let's keep pushing forward with the gospel of Jesus, and realize that that's what we're here to do. And that's what we're here to create, those environments, to create those experiences for lost people to be reached with the gospel of Jesus Christ. I
think you just gave a benediction there, Pastor Toby.
Sorry.
That's good. That's good. I think I'm going to leave it right there. So I want to thank Josh, Toby, Jake, especially Josh and your birds. Thank you for joining us. Whoever has the birds. But yeah, if you're watching this, we'd love to help the church. So if we can help you, reach out to us. We'd love to talk. Yes. But yeah, thank you everybody. And we will talk to you later. Take care.